You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You do nothing. You do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you do nothing. You do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Hey, Sherdog.com family. It looks like Anthony's having some issues hearing me right now. I don't know why that is. It looks like everyone else can hear me, and he's gone for some reason. Let's hope he just bounces back rather quickly. And again, apologies for this rough start. It's all Anthony's fault, though. Let's just be completely honest here. It's not mine. It's 100% Anthony's fault. In the meantime, though, I guess I will just talk to you and wait till Ant comes back because he's just not even here anymore. And we are live. But I hope everyone's having a fantastic day, a fantastic Wednesday over there. Ant's back. Let's see.
All right. What's up?
And,
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
All right, cool. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like right as the intro music was playing, my audio went dead. So I just reset everything and I'm back. So that's what's up. Yeah, so what's going on? I miss anything special?
No, we're good.
So I guess you already did the intro, so
yes.
So I guess I don't need to do it, although I'm probably going to do it anyway. Welcome to the trenches on Sherdog.com. Shabana and Walker, joined by the host and founder of Mixed Combat Radio, Matt the Hipster Hunter, a familiar face to Sherdog.com. What's going on, Matt?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I was just over here pretending like didn't have a catastrophic technical failure just as the show was starting. You know, just playing it off.
You know, you really don't need audio that much. You know, you don't need to hear me. You
just talk.
Yeah, I mean, you wait till I stop moving my lips and you talk, and you know we just go back and forth.
And I just assume you're wrong because I'm probably right. So that's what's up. So now I guess we should probably start talking about mixed martial arts and boxing and all that, so we're not talking about catastrophic technical failures before the show begins.
We can do that, you know, I guess.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start addressing your questions. And just to keep things fun, I did absolutely no prep for this. I have barely even looked at any of the questions that were put onto the forum. If you can, if anybody who wants to join the conversation, feel free to add your questions onto the live chat on YouTube. Feel free to call in to Skype. The regular phone lines are down right now, but the Skype, you can find that Mixed Combat Radio. So if you'd like to participate in the discussion more than just us running our mouths and you listening, feel free to do so. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, the first question comes from Pizzle. Pizzle, that is a name.
I honestly wonder where people come up with names. You know?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the rationale is behind a lot of these names, but Pizzle could be one of many things in Cali slang. So You would know
don't-
all about that.
Don't put that on us. Stop.
Well, that's a Bay Area thing, right?
The Bay Area, they're their own group of people. Honestly, they don't count as Californians. Same as like all of Northern California, like Sacramento, San Francisco. Like that's just not Cali. Like I'm sorry, you guys are your own state.
Okay.
Hot take of the day.
Yeah, that is a scorching hot take. So Pizzle asks, just how good is Conor McGregor? So I mean, every week we get a lot of Conor McGregor questions because, of course, he's the biggest name in the sport. We could say this for sure: his behavior isn't too good, and that's pretty much all we can say about Conor McGregor being good at this moment. Because, as far as I'm concerned, he's not an active mixed martial artist, so I don't really have much to say about him as a fighter right now because him as a fighter doesn't seem to exist now. I'm assuming that the just how good is Conor McGregor thing is also just a joke about like how good is such and such that just beat someone that's important and all, okay. I mean,
I'll put it this way: like Conor McGregor is like in his prime when he was like actually an active fighter, was one of the best in the world. Like clearly was
one of the best ever too, in my opinion.
I wouldn't go that far, but definitely in his time, he definitely was one of the best on the planet, that's without a doubt. But the guy, like you said, is not an active fighter right now. I mean, how can you rate someone's fighting ability that has fought once in the last 3 years, really? Like 4 years, honestly. Like, how can you do that? Like, it's almost impossible. So the jury's still out on what Conor McGregor is at this point in time, to be quite honest. And I think that it's completely fine, guys, to just go, we don't know. I know, like, in media especially, like, we are supposed to have all the answers. But sometimes we don't. And, like, how good is Conor McGregor in 2019, in the Lord of our year, 2019? I have no idea. I don't think anyone really does. And if they try to tell you that they do know how good Conor McGregor is right now, they're lying to you. Clearly.
Or they're an insider in his camp and see him in the gym. And that's...
And even then, like...
Yeah.
People
even then, it's not a fair enough gauge because he's not
No.
fighting the best of the world in his gym.
No, and even if you are fighting the best in the world in your gym, like, there's countless guys we know and heard about that have been gym warriors. And they go on to the big stage with all the lights, and they don't actually perform. Okay, so like I don't care if Conor McGregor is still training at SBG and still like beating up some of those guys over there. That doesn't mean anything to me. Like until he starts fighting relevant fighters in actual fighting and wins and looks good, then we can rate how good he is. Until then, he is a big giant question mark that's just dollar signs.
Well, the homie Jay just dropped this one on me in the Slack chat. And also, this is I did see this on Twitter before I rushed home to make sure we could do this show. And I wasn't sure how serious this was, but apparently he's supposed to be fighting Frankie Edgar in December. There was some sort of Twitter exchange between the two, and Frankie alluded to him signing a bout agreement. Now, we know bout agreements get thrown around in the UFC like candy on Halloween and don't really mean much until both parties sign it. Even then, it doesn't really mean anything until the UFC decides they want to honor it. So I don't know what to make of that. I'll wait till there is a formal announcement, and I'm going to check the timeline just in case I missed a formal announcement.
No, there's no formal announcement.
I have a feeling if there was a formal announcement, I'd get all sorts of alerts on my phone about that.
And honestly, last time I checked, it wasn't in positive, this fight's in negotiation. It's more of, no, this fight's not happening in December. Like, there was an article put out by, I think it was express.uk.com or whatever, right? And it was interviewed of his trainer and some other people within his camp. And they were talking about, hey, look, they were supposed to fight in December. They were trying to get a fight in December, but that card got filled up. The December card they were talking about has 3 title fights on it. They're not going to put Conor McGregor on top of that. It's a waste of money. So they're planning on January or February of next year. And, I mean, if Frankie Edgar's that name, I don't really like that fight at all, to be honest. And that's one of the worst fights they could make right now. But it is what it is.
It's a good fight for Conor to come back to. That's really what I wouldn't expect anything necessarily very competitive in that regard, but that's a good fight for Conor to come back to. That's a winnable fight. It's against a guy who is notably smaller than him, who was preparing to take a bantamweight fight on the Madison Square Garden show.
Yes.
And that plan was derailed. We talked to Frankie Edgar last week at the Dominus MMA Media Day, and he was pretty much like, hey, he hadn't officially started his cut to 135, but it wouldn't take him much, and he's walking around about 150 something right now. So, I mean, for Frankie Edgar, it would literally just be like walking in off the street to fight Conor, and that is a very favorable proposition for Conor McGregor, who is not the smallest guy in the world if you've ever seen him in person. So
agree completely. It's not a competitive fight anymore. It's a fight that has really no bearing. And honestly, these guys are divisions apart from each other. Like McGregor even fought way up at 170 for God's sake. Like a fight against a natural guy that's going down to 135 right now, it makes no sense. And I get that these are two relative names. Obviously, McGregor's a giant name, but I mean, Frankie Edgar's a relative name in the sport. It would sell. But, I mean, there are fights within the lightweight division that I think would sell more. You know, I keep bringing up the Don Cerrone fight, and I feel like I'm the only one mentioning that fight still, but that's still the best fight for Conor at lightweight. I don't know why that is not even within the equation for the UFC, and why they push back on the idea of that being a main event. That will never make sense to me.
Because people only buy main event pay-per-views if there's a belt on it. Therefore, BMF belts.
Except for like 2 or 3 out of the 4 biggest pay-per-views in UFC history.
Exactly. So, yeah, just a little minor issue of past history.
Just fact, you know.
And perhaps, you know, the greatest pay-per-view star the sport has ever seen. Yeah. Immaterial, totally immaterial. And the other half of that main event would have been one of the most significant draws in regular TV for the UFC. Yeah, doesn't matter at all. Just total horseshit. Throw it out. So let's go ahead and address a few things we got on the YouTube chat. Designated member, shout out to you. Welcome back. As is Cyborg Hunter now the next permanent co-host. I don't know where the cyborg thing came from for you, Matt.
Curious.
But yes, for all intents and purposes, Matt Hunter is the co-host of The Trenches. So shout out to the hipster Hunter.
Woohoo.
Great time for the air horns. That's what's up, y'all. Now, Frank McEgger, who actually I promised a co-host spot because Jason kept pissing me off and telling me I was wrong about stuff that he was wrong about. And I kept demoting him, who, by the way, Jason is now permanently petty officer credential. I'm sorry, Frank. Maybe you'll jump in on the sub next time. Designated member also asking, is this that legendary Ant Walker rap we've been hearing so much about? No, that was not the Ant Walker rap that was supposed to start the show. That's actually the intro to Mixed Combat Radio.
Our MMA
shows.
Yeah, our MMA show. That's our MMA intro. We have our box intro. We have our MMA intro. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent Matt a couple songs to just pick one to play. But the problem is the file, it wasn't compatible. So I'll have to redo that in a different file format. And we'll have that for you next week to hear Ant Walker on the MIC. Man, I got bars, though. I got bars for real.
Just stitching back to the last show, and I hope people remember this, okay? And when I called out Anthony for being an emo rapper, and he was like, no, I'm not. I have the text message to prove. Days later, Anthony going back and listening to his music and going, man, I was an emo rapper. Just got to say, it's now proven by the man himself. He was a wannabe Joe Budden.
I was not a wannabe Joe Budden. Joe Budden wasn't even out yet.
I have the text message to
Joe
prove
Budden
it.
wasn't out. Like, why you keep calling me a wannabe Joe Budden when I was doing this at least on my own before Joe Budden was known to the world?
What year were you doing it?
Like my solo album, I recorded that in 2000, I think.
Joe Budden was before you. What are you talking about?
Well, I hadn't heard him. I hadn't heard Joe Budden until like 2001 or something like that. When I first heard Joe Budden with like the Clue tapes and Pump It Up.
Well, Pump It Up was the first big song, obviously, and that was like Too Fast, Too Furious. But he had shit before that. Come on.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with him until after that.
I'm trying to find the text, guys. It's there somewhere.
Let's move on. We're talking about fights. Let's move on. Stop hating. Here we got a question from.
No, I got it. I got the text.
No, man, come on now.
Quote from Anthony Walker from Sherdog.com himself, guys. I was thinking about which songs to send you for the show next week. I'm having a hard time finding something completely non-emo content. Yeah, and it's okay, man. Okay.
Sorry, man. Give me the gunshots for that one. Give me the gunshots.
Okay.
Oh man. All right. So now that hipsters had
one more soundbite for you. One more soundbite.
Please believe your demise will be televised.
All right. Now that we're done with that. Now that we're done with that, we got a question from Fox Fletchit 57, who has a very simple question to me. He says, "Who are you?" To that I say, "Fuck you."
No, I reply back, well, "Who are you?"
Yeah, like, fuck you. I don't know. That's who I am. I don't know. Shit.
That's a weird comment.
I'm a guy that's written for Sherdog for a couple years now. Done some SRN work and script writing for MMA On Point. I've been around the block a little bit there, homie.
And he was an emo rapper before Joe Budden, guys.
We probably were emo rapping at the same time. Okay, we just didn't know of each other.
Guaranteed
didn't know of each other.
Guaranteed.
All right. Next question is from Natural Order. He asks, why did Kron Gracie not attempt a single takedown in his fight with Cub?
Because he's not a good fighter.
I'll say because he doesn't know how to.
Because he's not a good fighter. But no, I made this point, I think, on either the Walk of Shame or the Unleashed show, obviously on Walkout Network, Anthony's personal YouTube channel. Go check it out. And I made the point that a lot of grapplers, especially BJJ practitioners, when they come into the sport, they really have undeveloped grappling, MMA grappling. They don't have takedowns. They really don't have any sort of setups for clinch work at all. They really have a rudimentary understanding of sort of crossing that distance from long range to the inside, to clinch, chain wrestling to takedown. They have no concept of that. And honestly, BJJ just doesn't teach that. Like, it's just not in its curriculum, so to speak, right? And I think for a lot of really high-level BJJ practitioners, they come into MMA thinking they're set. They got a fucking a golden ticket up their sleeve, which is their grappling, that they can submit anyone. But if you can't take anyone down, if you don't have the technique or the skills or the talent to take anyone down because you've never been trained to do that, then guess what? You're not going to be efficient at it. And if you've never been trained or taught to evade strikes from long range, to get on the inside through feints, through throwaway shots, through slipping shots, through getting off the center line, etc., and then grappling, and then going for takedowns, if you've been taught that, then you're never going to be good at it. And I also made this point, I think, on the Walk of Shame show that, no offense to the Diaz brothers, but their camp is atrocious when it comes to developing talent. It always has been. I think it kind of always will be. Why? Because they also come from a BJJ background in Cesar Gracie. That mentality is so rooted in, we're set. We don't need to experiment. We don't need to evolve our game. And I can't think of any grappler that has gone to Cesar Gracie, that has gone to the Diaz brothers in their camp overall, and developed their striking. Not a single one. So I don't know why anyone thought Kron Gracie was going to be good in this fight. I don't understand why anyone picked Kron Gracie to beat Cub Swanson. He had zero technique to beat him. He had proven nothing in his career to show that he can beat high-level MMA fighters, or that he himself is a high-level MMA fighter. He's not complete in any shape or form, and he's not in a camp to really make him a complete fighter. AKA Faraz Zahabi, those are places that he should go.
All right, so I'm going to throw in a follow-up here from Europe One on the forum, who said, this could be greatly expanded, the Kron Gracie question. He says, why do so many BJJ wizards skip on their technique or their takedown game? Why vastly prioritize striking over wrestling when takedown abilities seem to synergize better with their grappling? It seems like a common theme. Don't these guys watch Damian Maia fights? So I'd like to add a point on here to throw in the mix. For anyone listening or watching right now who has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you, Matt, I know you've got a little experience in it. I've got a little bit of experience grappling training as well. 9 times out of 10, when you are going live, when it's sparring or you're rolling with someone, you start in a position where you're already locked up with one another.
Yes.
You start the fight already in some sort of position. Either you're standing within arm's reach, or you're on your knees and you take like an underhook or something like that, and then you begin. Or maybe you start from guard or something like that. But it's so based on position. A lot of times the training isn't necessarily to get you into that position. Whereas if you're boxing or you're kickboxing or you're doing full on MMA, you start at a particular distance. That bell rings and then you meet each other in the middle. So you have to have this ebb and flow as far as controlling the range. That doesn't exist in BJJ training. Now, I will say that contributes into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys not developing that takedown game as much, because it's not a consideration that they really think about. And then on top of that, if you're just training with Jiu-Jitsu guys, you probably can take each other down because one, you're all kind of used to the same sort of takedowns. You're all used to those kind of passive sweeps and some of those trip techniques to get the fight to the floor. But then on top of that, the person that you are sparring against is much more willing to go to the floor in the first place. So you will concede the takedowns in BJJ training because you're there to develop your ground game, not your anti-ground game, but your ground game. So when you have a guy with just BJJ takedowns and he is trying his best to get someone down to the ground who isn't willing to go there, not going to go as well as it normally does in training. And then when you mention a guy like Damian Maia, he had to add chain wrestling to his game in order to get it in the realm where he was most effective. And we've seen as his ability to get the fight to the floor has started to go down, like it's clearly diminished. His winning has diminished as well. His success in the cage has diminished alongside his takedown ability. So I think there's a synergy there, and there's something about that seems pretty logical. If you can't get the fight to the floor, your ground game doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, just to add and just to sort of specify some of the points that you made. The idea that BJJ, just from pure a practice standpoint, it's starting at a clinched up or a grappling stage already. You're not really starting at a stage where you're not grappling, you have to initiate grappling. The grappling's already been initiated as the setup to start the practice, so to speak, right? To start the live spar. You've already initiated grappling most of the time, in a sense, before you even start the sparring session in BJJ. And I almost want to liken it to clinch work for like boxers and Muay Thai fighters, right? Like boxers always have, when they transition to MMA, really underdeveloped clinch work. Why? Because when you clinch up in boxing, it's used as a defensive tactic to then you clinch up and you're not supposed to engage, and then you get separated.
Yep.
While in Muay Thai, you're allowed to work in the clinch. Clinching is actually one of, like, it's most of the work in Muay Thai, it feels like, right? Is on the inside, in the clinch. And that's why there's that sort of difference, and why boxers, it takes some time to shore up their clinch work, while maybe their grappling may develop faster. Because for so long, they have trained, when they clinch up, fighting is done. And in a similar way, for BJJ practitioners, when they're at distance, the fight's over. You're no longer grappling. There's no point. You know? And I think it's on this sort of same continuum there of just, there is a underutilized part of fighting within those specific disciplines, obviously, because they're very specialized disciplines of fighting, that they don't encompass everything, that when they go and when these people transition to actual complete fighting, there's massive holes, and even within their sort of own disciplines, boxers a la striking, BJJ practitioners a la grappling, while they still have massive deficiencies within their own disciplines, is because their specific disciplines don't teach everything within striking, everything within grappling, respectively. And that's just an issue that takes time to get over. And Kron Gracie at 5-0 did not have the time to develop past that.
It doesn't. So from some things I've heard about inside that camp, that apparently his biggest problem in the camp is the presence of Hickson Gracie. That Hickson will come in and be like, "Oh, you don't need to learn all that. You don't need to learn striking. You don't need to learn this. All you need is jujitsu." So that mentality has not done the Gracie family any favors in their struggle to stay relevant in mixed martial arts.
Any fighters out there, if you're listening, and your dad's either your manager or trainer, you get away from that. Sorry, get away from your dad being your trainer or manager as fast as possible. It will only do harm for your career, honestly.
There are only a couple examples I can think of where that was kind of good in some ways, and more bad examples than anything else. All right, so we have a question. Might as well jump on this one from the chat that kind of fits in the same theme. But Frank McGregor asking, does Damian Maia versus Ben Askren fully satisfy the just grapple gods?
Absolutely. Absolutely, right.
I'm really, really interested in what that fight's going to look like. That's either going to be the greatest fight or the worst fight ever. And it's no in between.
It's probably going to be the worst fight ever. Like, let's just be completely honest about it. But I'm insanely curious to see which discipline wins out.
So here's what I'm seeing as a possibility for this. Either one, obviously, as you just said, Maia's not going to be able to use like jiu-jitsu takedowns, especially on Ben Askren. I doubt his chain wrestling is going to work very well against Ben Askren, considering the level of grappler he is.
And quickly, Damian Maia is notoriously actually a really bad bottom grappler. He needs to be on top to really get his game going.
So I see as a possibility that they negate each other out as far as getting the fight to the floor. Well, here's the thing. Askren can get the fight to the floor.
Yes.
I think Askren will be able to take Maia down. Will he be able to just lay and prey on him? I'm not so sure about that. Even if Maia isn't the strongest grappler off his back, he does have some good submission wins over top level wrestlers off his back. He's got a couple of those wins under his belt. I don't think it's that far from the realm of possibility that he can at least threaten with submissions from the bottom on Ben Askren. But what I find more interesting is that this is probably going to end up being the worst striking match you have ever seen in your life.
Almost guaranteed.
It is going to be the worst because Damian Maia, at least from what I've seen, because I don't think we've seen enough of Ben Askren strike. The last time I can clearly remember Ben Askren in any sort of extended striking exchanges had to be against Jay Heron in Bellator. I don't see anything remotely looking like good striking coming out of these two together. It's going to look like the like 80s ADCC on the ground, and then look like your local Joe's Barn MMA fight promotion that has like the garbage card with like your old high school substitute teacher fighting the wrestling team's rejects on a stack of hay. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to be like the story of two different fights. I'm there for it. It's just maddening, sloppy, ugly, beautiful chaos. Sign me all the way up. I can't wait to live tweet about this one.
It's going to be a really bad fight, I feel like. If I'm a betting man, guys, it's going to be more of a worse fight than a great fight.
But it's going to be one of those fights that's so bad you have to see it.
Oh yeah, like you said, it'd be great. It's gonna be a great fight to tweet about live during it.
Yeah, this is one you want to have. You want to have your glass of whiskey, and just sit back and say, "Wow, this is what I do."
Wait, hold on. Cole Shelton, the
Judas of Sherdog,
the St. Peter of Sherdog, as some might say. Saying Ben Askren has not thrown a single strike in the UFC. Just thought I'd drop that in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. Ben Askren has not thrown a strike in mixed martial arts competition for like 3 or 4 years or something like that.
He didn't throw a strike on the ground like against Robbie Lawler at all?
No, I don't know, because he was trying to hang on and survive. Like, I think when they he didn't throw a single strike on the ground. He ended up going for that bulldog choke.
And it was so quick after he got hurt, huh?
Yeah, the sequence was so fast. Like when the fight initially started, he just went for him, and I think it was like he tried to body lock him. Lawler got him off and then dumped him on his head, beat him to a pulp. Askren grabbed for a leg, and then it kind of got reset on the feet. But at no point did Askren throw a strike.
Damn. I'm still picking Askren though to win that fight. By the way, against Maia, he should win that. He's just a better fighter.
I'm kind of leaning toward Damian Maia because he's the better striker. As crazy as that sounds,
no,
he's the better striker, man.
No, it's not going to matter. It's still not going to matter. I think Damian Maia is honestly on the verge of being shot, and at being 0-49 for takedown attempts in his last 4 fights. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't see Damian Maia getting to a position to win.
Yeah,
is that a 5-rounder or
that's the main event, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's Singapore, right? It's UFC Singapore, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it might be on in the middle of the night. I may not be live tweeting that.
Also, I do think Askren has the cardio advantage as well.
Yeah, I guess so. He's got more experience in 5-rounders. So.
Again, though, it's still going to be a shitty fight.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But beautiful at the same time. It's just going to be really, really bad.
Quickly. It's so funny that Askren went from he might get a UFC title shot. He's calling out GSP, 5-second knockout. They sent him all the way to Singapore against Damian Maia, and potentially the worst fight matchup that you could make.
Yeah, that's like, we're going to put you on what is guaranteed to be the shittiest fight on the calendar in some remote place in the world at 2 a.m. And best of luck to you there, kid.
That is Joe Silva level pettiness in terms of matchmaking. Respect.
I mean, the thing is, this is something that I think we should have anticipated to some extent, because Dana White and Ben Askren clearly have not seen eye to eye for years. And even in their friendly interactions since Ben Askren became a part of the UFC, has always been like a tinge of, kind of screw this guy. At the same time, it's always been something else beneath the surface to it. So this doesn't shock me in the least bit. Like, Dana White got Ben Askren for multiple reasons, and now he at least gets to try to destroy him in the meantime. The fact that they gave him Robbie Lawler in the first place for his first fight shows it all. Like, that was the one guy at welterweight that he wasn't calling out. That was the one guy that he expressed no interest in fighting. So yeah, let's book him. And also perhaps the worst style matchup in the entire division.
Also, we'll add designated member in the chat saying, remember, Jake Shields out grappled Maia. Ooh, that's right. Thank you, designated member.
I don't remember him grossly out grappling him though. That was a close fight, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Suck it, Ant. We won.
The fight hasn't happened yet.
We won the debate. Just accept it.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
It's normal, man.
I got to learn how to do all this technical stuff so I can run the boards and I can mute your mic and stuff. But whatever. Sick of your
send
shit.
me location.
Just send me location.
You know where I live, so
I actually do know where you live. That's true. That's true.
I know where you're like. We know exactly where the other one is right now.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
We do know the location.
Yes, we already have the location. Although I'm not sure if I stored it in Google Maps, so you might have to send it to me all over again.
I'm safe, guys.
All right, so we got another question from Europe One who asks, Ant, what is more confusing, Trump's Syria policy or ONE FC's suplex policy?
I mean, come on. Trump's Syria policy, hands down.
No, clearly it's ONE FC's suplex policy. That is more complicated. Trump just got out of Dodge with Syria. He just left. He just pulled the troops, just left. Pretty simple.
No, it's not that simple, but we're gonna move
complex ramifications, but he did something very simple. ONE FC, on the other hand.
ONE FC did something very simple. They just ignored their rules. That's very simple.
Sounds like the president to me.
It's almost equivalent, but except the loss of human life and tragedy and all that.
Yeah. But yeah, like ONE FC suplex policy, like, does it really exist?
No.
I'm reminded
Wait, is it next to their WADA policy? I'm confused.
It's somewhere. It's on the same shelf. It's on the
Okay.
same shelf.
Just making
So
sure.
their competition committee has to meet to decide about this. Who is on this competition committee? When do they meet? What are the seconds to these meetings? No one knows. But we got to trust that it's there because they're all about honor and integrity and respect and all that fun stuff in the honorable parts of martial arts or whatever else the hell they're trying to sell everyone. Now, their suplex policy is pretty ridiculous because they disqualified a fighter for a suplex last year, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And this year,
fighter that I think it was a fighter that also beat one of Chatri's fighters too, one of Evolve's fighters, right? Wasn't it one of those cases?
Christian Lee, Angela Lee's brother, got disqualified for a suplex at some point. I think last year, or the year before, someone else got disqualified for a suplex last year.
I'm trying to remember now.
And now Angela Lee performs a suplex, clearly a suplex, although I think the defense now saying that she turned her hip a little bit toward the end, so it was off to the side, but isn't that just a variation of a suplex?
Yes.
Exactly. So, yeah, and then there was also some Facebook posts that Chatri put up about the suplexes being illegal and just no ifs, ands, or buts. Suplexes are banned in one championship. That Facebook post has been mysteriously deleted since Angela Lee's win Saturday night.
That's fucking illegal.
Exactly. Actually, it's not illegal because the competition committee decides these things.
That is true, man. Wait, hold on. First off, obviously, I think a no suplex rule on its surface and on its face is a stupid rule. Can we just all agree with that?
Yes.
Like, it's like the no elbow rule in Strikeforce. It made no sense. It just fundamentally made no sense at all.
Only makes sense in tournaments because you want to prevent cuts. That's only.
Yes, understand that completely because it expedites the tournament. But other than that, no. If you just have if you're blatant no elbow, no suplex, why don't you have a no takedown policy for God's sake? What the fuck are you doing? However, if you're gonna have a stupid, silly rule, then follow it. If you're not, then obviously we're gonna call you out. And you know, I'm getting close, and to like one of these days, I'm gonna just have a full-on rant about all the media members that are taking Chatri's dime, okay, and are giving him free publicity, going and off and auctioning off memorabilia for Twitter followers, okay. One of these days, I'm gonna go on a rant because I'm getting sick and tired of this level of just conflict of interest, corruption, whatever sort of adjective you want to use for one championship, and the amount of media members that are just, you know, dog and pony or tail and pony just following along and not doing their basic fucking job. And it's getting sick and tired. I'm getting sick and tired of it, to be quite honest, because they're giving us a bad rap. And I'm over it. I'm getting really over it because this shit's over. This shit's stupid. Like, again, like, you get everyone out there, it's really fucking obvious who's taking the dime. Who's flying over to Tokyo and Hawaii but can't afford to spend one fucking dollar on one article covering the antitrust hearing? I wonder who those people are. I wonder who.
I think we need to hear some gunshots.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to follow that, and that was a beautiful rant by you, Mr. Hunter. I'm happy to
very quickly
start the tradition of rants here on Sherdog.com. What's up?
Quickly.
Please believe your demise will be televised.
Don't get all patronizing with me on social media when you're out there taking a fucking check or a dime from a promoter. Don't ever.
Well said. Well said. So, you know, we gotta follow up here from the homie Jay in the Slack chat who wants us to add our thoughts on one championship. Do they risk harm to their own brand with this style of promotion? Can it actually take away from the product by overhyping all the events?
Absolutely. Like, if there's a difference between, like, let's say what Ryzen does with, like, the circus of an event and like putting on a show, a spectacle, right? And then saying we're the best promotion out there. We have tens of millions of people watching us. We're innovating all of regulation in the sport. Like the claims that one championship are making and they aren't backing up are extreme claims. It's very different than just being hyperbolic with promotion. I think like I think it was like Jason had an issue like Chavalos, or maybe it was Jay on one of the shows. Chavalos sort of hyperbolic ranting on broadcast.
On the commentary, yeah.
Yeah, to me, like that's not as much of an issue, to be quite honest. I understand how that's annoying, but it's when you make certain claims about being innovative to the industry. Those are claims that we can verify, and they're wrong. You're lying to us. Claiming that you have the best weight cutting program in all of MMA and everyone else should follow you is a serious claim. You can't joke about that, in my opinion. This isn't saying, this is the biggest fight in Asian MMA history. Like, say that. Who gives a shit? Okay? Don't say that you're innovating the industry and your regulation's better than the US or the UK's. It's just not. And you know me, like regulation's one of my beats. Like I cover that more than anything. And that blatant just lying that Chatri and one do when it comes to the regulation is so nauseating. And shout out to Bodylock MMA for all of the work they've done in the past as well, for just exposing it. Again, the WADA policy, that's just non-existent. That's a lie. You go down the list, there's significant issues with one championship. The lack of transparency, the conflict of interest, the corruption.
My big issue with them is
and sorry, I didn't answer the person's question. And I do think that does hurt their brand long term to do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, see, the thing is, every promoter does it to an extent. Every promoter wants you to think the next event is the biggest and best thing in the world, but they take it to a step that it's just not realistic. When you say that there are 90 million people watching, that's not true.
70, but yeah.
It's just not true. It's no way on God's green earth that is an actual, sliver of reality into that statement. Maybe 70 or 90 million people have the channel that this program is going to be aired on. That don't mean all these motherfuckers are going to be turning in. I'm reminded of Dana White's claims when they got the Spike deal. And it was like, yeah, this thing is in so many millions of homes. Yeah, but all those homes watching. How many homes have ESPN? Does that mean everybody who has ESPN is watching UFC? No, it does not. But where I'm with you. I'm with you on pretty much everything you said there. There's not anything you're going to hear me disagree with. I think one championship is ridiculous for the claims they make. I think they are, it's very clear that they have a certain segment of media in their purse strings. I think that's pretty obvious as well. But what I have the issue with is holding yourself up as the moral beacon.
Yes. When
you are just dog shit corrupt. Just blatantly, disgustingly corrupt.
And we have issues and we have criticism of, like, let's say the UFC and regulation here in the US, and that are significant issues. But one championship's issues are far bigger. And if you don't think that, if you don't realize that, then someone needs to walk you through how regulation in this sport works and take you like a step-by-step basis on how it works. I don't have the time for it. We've already been here for 45 minutes. We have other shows to do after this. But somebody needs to do that, because clearly you don't understand how regulation works, how it functionally and fundamentally is needed to work, and how one championship has zero regulation. Self-regulation is not regulation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give them some credit in the sense that, like, self-regulation is necessary in that part of the world because there aren't commissions, but there is normally some level of transparency behind what's going on. So we will criticize the UFC, we'll criticize Bellator, we'll criticize PFL, we'll criticize anybody who deserves to be criticized. I think you and myself are very known to do that and have no issue just spouting out whatever we're thinking about any promotion or any promoter in particular. But like when the UFC goes to some territory that does not have regulation, when Bellator goes over to some territory that does not have formal government regulation, they bring regulators with them. Now you can talk. Well, we definitely can talk about conflict of interest there, because
and also we can bring up several occasions where they have had significant issues when that's happened.
Right.
A la John Jones, Vitor Belfort. Like that was in a non ABC commission regulated market, and look what happened there. Like there's a lot of different occasions where self-regulation is definitely a detriment to fighter safety.
But then all at this on the flip side of that coin, there are plenty of instances of the UFC doing self-regulation properly when they didn't necessarily have to. Like if I'm remembering this correctly, the Mark Hunt and Bigfoot Silva fight.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything
fighting
to me.
your candidate, and they pulled back those results and everything because of the PED testing.
Yeah, but that again, that doesn't mean much to me, to be honest. Like a promoter doing like their basic duty.
No, well, I think it's important to recognize that there is. What I'm saying is, one championship is totally self-regulating, and they're totally doing things wrong. From what we can tell, because they blatantly lie about stuff. They have an agency program that is direct conflict of interest in how the sport is supposed to be run and how the fighters are supposed to be negotiating for their fair share of the pie. There are so many issues with that involved in their self-regulation and what self-regulation means to them. But we've seen other examples of when self-regulation can be done properly. So if they were doing that, then okay.
No, okay. I understand your argument. I disagree with it though, because I don't think self-regulation, even if it's done correctly, is the correct way to go about. If that makes sense, I think the best thing to do, because it's like the old SAT answer, like what's the good answer, but what's the best answer, right? Like good self-regulation is obviously a good scenario if that's what is there, but it's not the best case scenario. The best case scenario is to build regulation in those markets, which the UFC has done. So,
but the UFC didn't necessarily build regulation; they built it off the framework of something that already existed.
And I think there is enough framework in the Asian markets, at least like Japan, the Philippines. There's boxing commissions there.
Okay.
So
you would know more about overseeing boxing commissions than I would. I'll defer to you on that.
The idea that there's zero regulation in East Asia is just not true. It's just like there's no regulation in Russia or East Europe. There is. There are boxing commissions all over. Okay? The thing is that boxing commissions have to adapt MMA rules. And if they don't do that, there's no push, there's no lobby for that, then it never happens. As far as I know, the Japanese Boxing Commission does not regulate MMA. So they don't regulate Ryzen. They never regulated the UFC. They never regulated Pride. That was never their jurisdiction. They thought of MMA, shoot wrestling, all that stuff as pro wrestling. So they didn't view it as the same light under their regulation. But if one championship, the beacon of morality, really wants to do it the best way, hire out the Japanese Boxing Commission. Lobby for them to cover MMA. You can do it. If you're that big and you have that much of an investment in you from all these huge investment firms, you can lobby a Japanese commission to start having some MMA rule sets. You can lobby the Philippines to do that. The idea that there is zero apparatus to attach itself to is just not accurate. And separate from commissions, because commissions obviously will in some way oversight when it comes to PD regulation, but largely it's more about weight cutting and such things, medical evaluations, those things that are very important. For PD regulation, they can hire out a VADA program. VADA is international. It's not WADA, but it's close enough. And on top of it,
they cannot lie about it. That'll be dope.
And VADA, to their credit, is pretty transparent when it comes to collection agencies, when it comes to PED regulation. So one championship has absolute routes of avenue to be regulated from third parties. They choose not to, in my opinion. And to circle back to your point, I do understand that like good self-regulation is better than obviously no regulation or bad self-regulation, but I still think it's the best case scenario, and we should still push for something better than that.
No, that makes total sense. And now kind of going full circle in this, I think it will be a much better use of their investor capital, like the hundreds of millions of dollars that have poured into the organization, instead of flying media members out, instead of sliding checks where they probably shouldn't go. Maybe these are funds that could be used to lobby for regulation in the market. So
yes,
100% with you on that one, Matt.
And even like, you don't think like China would want a commission if you lobby for them? Like, come on, like China's a fucking socialist communist nation. They love government control. Like that's not an issue. Like you can do this. Like the idea that like regulation,
they'll ban tattoos from all the fighters. They'll do something crazy like that. So
and fuck if they do that. Look, if you're a multi-$100 million company, you have the lobby power. You do, especially in those markets, in China, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, India, Japan. If you have money, shit can move. Entire mountains can move if you have money in those markets. And one championship is flooded with cash. And like you said, stop paying a lot of money for photojournalists and media members, air quotes journalists, to come out to all your events to give you fluff pieces. Honestly. Because you're going to get coverage no matter what. Honestly, one championship. Maybe not that same amount that you're paying for, but you're still going to get coverage. And you can save a lot of money, and like Ant said, lobby for some third-party regulation, because then you get people like me and Anthony and others, and like the entire company of Body Lock MMA off your fucking back. And I think honestly, in sort of circling back to that, I think it was the last question about like their promotion, does it hurt them, their brand long term? That's how you fix this sort of issue. This sort of bleeding effect you have right now as a company in terms of reputation. You need a third-party oversight. Run to it. Otherwise, it's going to be issues for you. A la the UFC in 2000.
All right. Look at that. The first Sherdog.com hipster hunter rant. Beautiful work.
I've ranted before on Sherdog.
Not on Sherdog. You've ranted on you. I mean, you rant every day on Mixed Combat Radio.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Like every day, like every show I've done with you on that, it's some rant somewhere in there. But today, Sherdog debut for the rant. I like it. So Cole Shelton saying in the chat, real talk, where is this so-called MMA JA to do something about people going to one events on their dime? All the gun smoke. All the gun smoke, man. I can't even breathe.
I'm not part of the MMA JA. So
neither am I.
But from all the members I have talked to about this issue in particular, they all say the MAJ is toothless right now. Like there's no actual bite behind their bark. So who knows, man?
With no shade intended to the I got some friends of mine on the MMAJA that at least at some point have served on as board members or whatever else.
I have friends that have messaged me this, like that are part of the MMAJA, that hey, like we're not doing our job. So like I can't make them do their job when they themselves are telling us, hey, we're not doing our job.
Yeah, but I'll put it this way: if MMAJA to me seems powerless, if Josh Gross still can't come to a UFC event.
Absolutely agree with that.
That right there, if Josh Gross is reinstated as a credentialed media member for UFC events, then I'll start believing in them. Until then, I'm sorry. How much power do you have? Because perhaps the best journalist that the sport has ever seen is sitting on the outside because of some petty nonsense, like him doing his job, gets in the way of him, doing his job. Somebody ain't doing their job. So there's that. All right. Now we're gonna keep up with the Europe One train because he's got some good questions, and I didn't scroll down to see what other questions we got. So there it is. I'm still on the same thread for Europe One. He says the PFL has started hiring contestants for its third season. Will it even go off? What is keeping this ghost ship afloat, especially with Harrison having failed to turn into a Ronda star? Matt, I know you're not very familiar with the PFL product.
No.
So I'm not even really expecting an answer from you on this one. So I'll just go ahead and take that unless you want to interject.
I'll let you answer first, but I do want to answer.
Okay. All right. So I have a feeling there'll be a second Matt Hunter rant incoming. But like yeah, I don't know if this is going to go off or not. I certainly hope it does because I granted this season has not been very good from an entertainment standpoint. Things have not gone according to plan for PFL this season. They've had so many people miss weight. They've had Sarah Kaufman, who I think they were really intending on fighting Kayla Harrison in the finals, is not even in the playoffs. So things have not gone right for the PFL second season. That being said, though, the more promotions there are being successful, the more opportunities there are for fighters, the better they can negotiate for more pay. Even look at them signing Brendan Loughnane, who was like essentially just snubbed for the Contender Series, getting a UFC contract. So there is value to PFL being there. And then on top of that, we're fight fans at the end of the day. So, hey, the more MMA content is available for me to watch, I'll be happy with it. Even if I can't watch it all, I'll be happy just knowing I could turn on the TV and there are some MMA. So I certainly hope they do succeed. Now, as far as what's keeping them afloat, I would have to assume that it's the money they're getting from ESPN. I don't know the exact figures on that. To be quite honest, I'm not sure if those figures were really released. If someone in the chat can, Cole, I know you're commenting on the chat. If you know that figure, please post it up for me because I'm unaware of what it is. But I would assume that money is doing them a lot of good as far as keeping things afloat. They've tried to tone things down as far as the scale this year. Notice that they have only left the New York, New Jersey area once this year, and that was for the first round of the playoffs to be in Las Vegas. Everything else has been in Atlantic City and New York. So I don't even recall there being a DC show this year. And that's just, 4 hours down the road. Pat Auger, the homie Pat Auger of Sherdog.com and Body Lock MMA on the chat saying $5 million a year is the rumored figure. That $5 million, I mean, that's not a lot to run a promotion.
Wait, that's their ESPN2 deal?
The ESPN deal.
ESPN2. They're on ESPN2.
Well, ESPN Plus and ESPN2.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
$5 million a year, that's it?
Yeah, and that's not a lot, but I mean...
Whoa. That's
but they're
nothing.
they're still getting good venture capitalist money according to Pat. So that makes sense. Now, I don't know how long they have to operate like that. I really don't know, especially when you're talking about giving $1 million prizes to the winners in every weight class. Have no idea how long that's going to sustain itself. But the thing about venture capitalists, they normally will stick on that train for a few years before they start pulling away. So they probably have one more year at least. That would be my assumption. They probably have another year to get this going. And as far as Kayla Harrison not becoming a star yet, it takes time to develop stars a lot of times. And it's not like Kayla Harrison is in the biggest position in the forefront. Granted, she has like the backing of Dominance MMA, which is kind of a big deal for a lot of fighters because Ali is at least good at putting them out there.
Where was she at the press conference?
She was fighting like the next day or something.
Excuses.
So yeah,
excuses.
So she
fly out to LA and then fly back to New York. Come on.
Yeah, in the middle of your weight cut. That's what's up.
Oh yeah, do that.
Yeah, but I'd say I'd give them one more year, maybe.
I have a piece coming out in, again, probably about a week or so. Almost done with the research portion of the article, but it's going to cover mainly boxing, but some MMA included. It's about the economic bubble we're in right now. I think PFL is an obvious example of that economic bubble and an entity that's profited off of it for this period of time. But if that bubble bursts, they're one of the first that goes. Absolutely. I think PFL is in a good position right now with ESPN, even with the very little money they get per year. I think I agree with you that the overhead costs are probably pretty low. They're good for another year for sure. And then once you have investor capital like fund, you're good. Like you're set for a period of time. However, again, if the economic bubble bursts, there's nothing to save them, because it's not a question of them having money. It's a question of does ESPN have money for all these combat sports? Because that's what happened when this economic bubble does burst. It's not about PFL's money running out. It's about ESPN's budget for combat sports shrinking up a little bit, and then losing a PFL, losing some of the Frank Warren boxing, losing the Tyson Fury contract, some of the extra bits of cash that they had, dropping down their purses for boxing overall. I would be surprised if that were to happen the next year or two. But some things need to happen for that to happen. And I think it's a little bit outside of PFL's control. I think if everything's good right now, if the market can sustain itself for a long period of time, PFL will sustain itself for a long period of time. Because they have a decent enough product. Even though I've rarely watched it, I respect their product probably a lot more than, like, let's say, one championship. I just think that they need to definitely get away from the Ali Abdelaziz situation as quickly as possible. Because I think similar to the one championship and their reputation coinciding with a very negative story and them needing to rectify that story immediately to fix the reputation, PFL is in a similar situation where their reputation is largely diminished right now due to one man and that their connection with one man, Ali Abdelaziz. If they fix that, I think their reputation largely grows, largely gets better within this community.
Well, see, the problem with that is, and I agree with the ties with the reputation, because he is not exactly a beacon of good press right now for them. It's been 2 or 3 times now that he's been at an event and some form of fighting took place.
Again, Biolock MMA guys, they obviously did a piece recently about it. I think it's 3 times. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking him and Usman fought some fans at the first PFL event, I think. I don't know if Ali was there, but the Diaz camp got into it with Habib's camp.
Yes.
At a PFL event, and then him slapping Abraham Kawa.
But also, I think there was a World Series of Fighting story as well. Other than the lawsuits that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the same company. So
yeah, same company. But I think there was altercation that happened back when it was World Series of Fighting with him and maybe one of the Kawas as well. Again, probably like I made, they put an article recently. Go check it out. But
the first Kawa altercation, that was UFC 150.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was
regardless.
But yeah, same. I mean,
they need custom ties here easily.
Yeah, but the problem with them doing that though is that's like 70% of their roster,
and
including Kayla Harrison, who is the biggest star, even if she hasn't quite gotten to the real star level. So they would have a serious problems as far as the bodies to fill in these slots. Granted, there are plenty of mixed martial artists out there. At what high level, though, I don't know. But yeah, so Cole brings up a good point on the chat, too. He's saying, honestly, would you be surprised if PFL cut the prize money to $500K next year? They also cut weight classes from last year to save money. Now, I did forget about the weight class cutting, because the middleweight division got cut. And Lewis Taylor won the tournament last year at middleweight, had an incredible story. Check out homie Jason Burgos. He did a couple interviews with him on Sherdog.com. I know they're somewhere down in the video archive on this YouTube page, so check those out. But yeah, man, they kind of had to sacrifice one of their stars, like a guy you really could do something with. Stars, no, a guy who was recognizable with a great story that you could promote. Lewis Taylor had a fantastic story, and the perfect example of the good that PFL could do. That a guy who otherwise would be making 30 and 30 in the UFC, if that, to now cash $1 million check. That's a hell of a story. That is the best commercial for up and coming fighters or guys who might be kind of on the verge of washing out of the elite levels of the UFC, or just a guy who can't break into the top 10 or break into the top 5 and say, man, I probably could run the table and get $1 million.
I don't necessarily have a take on what you said there because I don't know. I don't know Lewis Taylor. Like I don't know this guy. I don't know his story.
Have a take.
But a negative opinion I have is that I don't know if there's really, again, sort of switching back to this economic bubble that might burst. Even without it, like I don't know if there's really a space for a PFL, and especially what PFL is trying to do. PFL is trying to be the next Bellator and be on that level with them, clearly, right? And I don't know if there's room for them. From a pure, like, amount, there's just too much content. Like, it's the old oversaturation talking point that happened, 2011, 2012, 2013, right? It's that talking point rearing its ugly head again of there's a lot of fighting on weekends. You know, like if I go and look at the schedule right now for this upcoming weekend, we have a UFC Boston card on Friday. We have a Top Rank card on Friday. We have a DAZN UK card on Saturday. I'm assuming there's a Bellator. I'm assuming there's some sort of one championship. There's some sort of PFL, LFA, something other than those things. Plus Telemundo, ThompsonBoxing.com, UFC Fight Pass occasionally has their own boxing or MMA cards. Invicta, whatever it may be. That is a lot to cover in one weekend, or let's say just in a regular period of time as an MMA fan or a media member. And I don't know if there's, again, space. There's enough space in this industry for things like PFL, or at least what PFL is trying to do. If PFL settled to be a LFA, if they settled to be more of a, I don't know, Pancrase or something, you know, more of a regional promotion, an SES, you know, one of those MMA promotions that's purely a regional promotion, a Cage Warriors of the Northeast, then I think they have a obvious long-term viability. However, I don't know if there's enough space for big-time MMA promotions for another one like PFL. I think there's the UFC have gobbled up too much space, too much real estate. I think that Bellator has gargled up their own, and I think there's nothing left for these other MMA promotions, at least in the U.S. market.
Well, the PFL advantage is that they are, you know, aligned with ESPN also. So in a way, they piggyback off of the publicity that the UFC gets and the push that ESPN gives to the UFC.
Look, I don't know if there's any empirical evidence that has worked for their numbers.
I mean, it literally just started, so I don't think we have enough of a sample size.
It's been going on for over a year, hasn't it? The PFL,
this is the first. This is the first season that they've been on ESPN. The previous season was NBC Sports. So
when did the season start?
The season started.
Are you sure about that? Because PFL have had events throughout this year on ESPN.
I'm
right?
Totally certain of that. The ESPN Plus, ESPN2 deal started this year.
When did it start? January. January, February,
maybe something like that.
Okay, so we've had 9 months.
Yeah, but
have TV numbers improved at all? Has gate revenue improved?
I don't know, because you know ESPN Plus doesn't really publicize a lot of that stuff.
They're not ESPN Plus. Hold on. Very quick. A lot of them are not ESPN Plus. A lot of them are ESPN2.
Like actually, they show portions of the card on both services. They normally show. It's like they show the prelims on ESPN2, and then they show the main card on ESPN Plus. That's typically what they do.
All I know is from the numbers I have seen.
Cole saying it started in May.
Their numbers have been atrocious, and they have not risen. They have not done anything. You know, it's almost like Combatis America's gate revenue, because obviously they're DAZN, so we don't have their U.S. TV numbers, but their gate revenue has never improved. We've never seen a spike in what they've been able to do. We've seen steady, mediocre numbers.
No, I'm not saying that automatically that there's going to be an instant showing of a benefit to being part of ESPN. But what I'm saying is, in the long term, that could just hold it on for just a little bit longer, because ESPN has a clear vested interest in the success of mixed martial arts at this point, with so much money invested into the UFC. Now, we've also seen World Series of Fighting kind of in a weird way be a de facto feeder league for the UFC.
Well, yeah, because you have the Ali connection, obviously.
Right. So that still goes on. That still goes on. You still, if they treated it, if with it being tied to ESPN, it could be the high level feeder league. So
Look.
the tournament winner gets a shot in the UFC or something. There are ways to preserve PFL and kind of keep the essence of what it is. There are ways to do that. Now, I'm not saying that it's all going to be successful in time to save this promotion, but it's something. They're going to do better than LFA with no TV deal right now.
It doesn't matter for LFA because they're a regional promotion. You get what I'm saying? Like, no. I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding this issue here. LFA understands their status. They understand their place in the industry. And they're fully aware of it, and they accept it. PFL is trying to be the next Bellator, which a point I made and you agreed with, okay? Under those parameters, okay, and along the lines of they're on ESPN2, they have a somewhat connection to the UFC and the ESPN conglomerate. Have we seen any improvement with them trying to be the next Bellator, to be the next number 2 in the US market? I have not seen that. I've not seen any movement in the needle for them in any shape or form. I've not seen any improvement in name recognition for their fighters. I haven't seen, again, any movement of the needle, so to speak, to use the Dana White term. And I will add, I don't know if the casual ESPN sporting fan even knows PFL exists. And when they think about ESPN and MMA, they think UFC. And I also think the UFC, not the UFC, the ESPN executives think that as well. Like, the PFL is a very cheap deal. It's, a $5 million a year deal for a broadcast deal is nothing.
Oh, that's dog shit money.
So like, it's not like they're really invested in PFL. There aren't at all at this point.
No, they're invested in mixed martial arts through their association with the UFC.
But okay, but your point.
And I'm not saying I don't have access to the numbers, so I don't know what any increases or decreases. But I'll tell you this though, had they been on ESPN for the first season, where things were a lot more exciting, where it felt fresher, and things weren't going wrong with every single event, maybe you had something there. No. This season, I want to see a good season where things don't completely fall apart, where everybody's not missing weight, and the tournament rules get jacked up, and all sorts of weird things happen that screw up the product. Because if they have an exciting product and they're positioned right next to the UFC, it does not mean that they'll become the de facto number 2 league in the world, but it does secure them just a little bit. It does bring some level of eyeballs.
I'm no longer arguing that.
Every single PFL event this year has sucked that I've tried to watch. They've all sucked.
I'm not arguing if their connection to ESPN will let them survive for another year or two. I'm not arguing that, Ant. I'm arguing, does their connection to the ESPN UFC conglomerate in any way, shape, or form will improve their status actually, and will lead them to their goals of being the number 2 North American MMA promotion. And I don't know if there's any evidence to that. And on top of it, I don't even know beyond that if there's a desire for that in the market from the consumer base. I don't think the consumers want another MMA promotion in the space to take up our time. There's too much MMA right now. Honestly,
consumers ain't that smart. Consumers will just take whatever's there. So to a lot of people, they don't know the difference between the UFC and Bellator.
No. They do, Ant. Stop.
For real,
100% they do.
For real, fight fans, yeah. But you realize how many casual fans that the UFC is always trying to rope in for pay-per-view dollars that has no clue what the difference is.
And if that was true, then why has Bellator hit a clear ceiling for the last decade in terms of TV numbers?
Because their product sucks right now too.
You know why?
They screw up as far as when you can watch it. It's on a channel. It's on a channel that shows reruns of fucking romantic comedies.
It doesn't matter. Okay, there's only enough space for a certain amount of combat sports, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, the UFC far exceeds that for the casual fan, for the casual consumer.
The casual fan ain't watching every single UFC event either.
That's
They're
not
just
what.
watching.
That's not what I'm arguing, Ant. I'm not arguing that
No,
they're
but
watching every UFC event.
I'm not saying. I know that's
you
not
keep
what
shifting the goalposts here. Let me finish my point here, okay?
No, I'm gonna shift the goalposts.
Okay. The argument is, can PFL meet their goals and supplant Bellator as number 2 in the North American market? Okay?
Probably not.
Okay, then we agree.
Yeah, but
then why have you been arguing with me for the last 30 minutes?
Because I'm saying maybe they don't supplant Bellator or whatever, but they still secure some status. They can secure a good spot.
But that's not my point anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's like.
You shift the goalposts. Oh,
no. I've always said no.
Yeah, so you shift the goalposts.
And we already agreed that the ESPN deal alone allows them viability for the next year or two, right?
Yeah.
So we're no longer talking about that. We're talking about their long-term goals. Their long-term goals are obviously one thing: to be the number 2 MMA promotion in the North American market. That's now what I have been debating, what I've been arguing. And I would say, even with their connection to the ESPN UFC conglomerate, that has clearly not worked. Why? Because I don't think there's even a desire for a PFL-like thing in the market. There's not even a desire for a Bellator in the market from the consumers, really. That's why their numbers have flatlined forever. Okay? That's my point.
Okay, see, now to that, I would say I don't think the consumer really knows the difference. Most consumers.
And I disagree with that entirely. Because
I'll say everybody who's watching and listening to this now, and everybody we talk to and hang out with and all that, they know. We're educated fight fans. We know. But there are so many people. How many people have you talked to they ask, what do you, but Matt, I know you've had this experience. If someone asks you what you do for a living and you say, I run a podcast channel about combat sports, and they say, oh yeah, or like UFC. Yeah. It's like, oh, I love the UFC. Man, when's the next time Ronda Rousey's fighting? And you're just like, well, you clearly don't watch it that much, do you?
But, and I'm not talking about.
Or they say, when they'll say, man, that Royce Gracie, well, he was a mean one.
But that still doesn't prove your point that
it does.
No, it doesn't. Let me.
It does. Because I was still moving the goalpost, and then you jumped in.
No. I'm fine with that argument now because I wanted to get to that actually. Okay. I
allow it.
I didn't hear what you said, but I'm just gonna move on. All right. I think if you put a UFC production in front of someone, and then put a Bellator production in front of someone, and they're just, let's say, the average sporting Joe, they watch Sunday football. They watch World Series. They watch the Super Bowl. And that's like it, right? They watch the occasional like Mayweather fight, like the Canelo fight, maybe a John Jones fight, and then McGregor for sure, right? Nate Diaz, they kind of know he smokes weed. That's cool. That's like their knowledge, right? They will still recognize, oh, that's the UFC. Why? Because it's the UFC. It would be like putting, let's say, Canadian football.
Yeah, CFL versus the NFL.
And you put that against somebody that's a casual sporting fan that doesn't really know football, they can spot the difference. Guaranteed.
I see what you're saying on that, but I don't fully agree because we've seen evidence to show otherwise. We've seen plenty of evidence to show. Okay, so for instance,
point out the evidence.
When the UFC went over to Fox from Spike,
yes,
and Spike would counter program because they still had like a year to they had a year rights to some UFC content or whatever. They would counter program live events on Fox with shit on Spike TV, and the Spike TV would get numbers. It wouldn't beat the UFC, the live UFC, but it would get numbers.
But Ant, you fail to understand your point.
No, I'm saying what I'm. No, I'm making my point, man.
Ant, let me.
I'm making my point.
I understand your point.
No, the thing is that people don't know. They don't know.
Ant, you fail to understand why your point sucks.
Oh my god! And I know what you're gonna say, and I'm eviscerated. But continue.
You just admitted they counter program with UFC content.
Exactly, and I'm about to eviscerate that shit because
I'm done. I win. I win.
No, you don't win. You don't win. You don't win. You don't win. Because look at this. Look at this. That's a crude gesture, and I will not tolerate that on these airwaves.
X-Pac's a legend.
No. See, the reason why that argument still stands is because if you are a true fight fan, if you are a true sports fan, and you're staying on top of shit, and you actually know what you're looking at.
We're not talking about real fight fans.
You don't like how stupid do you have to be to not know the difference? How stupid do you have to be to not know the difference between a live fight and one that was taped before?
And you just said if you're a real fight fan, we're not talking about real fight fans. We're talking about the average consumer. The average consumer.
Yeah, the average consumer average consumers were fooled by this.
Of course,
like, that's what I'm saying.
But they're fooled by other UFC content. They weren't. Hold on. The casual sporting fan was never fooled by Bellator content for UFC or Strikeforce content for UFC. That's never happened. Ever. Your own example proves. Hold on. Your own example proved it because they kind of programmed with UFC content. That's all that works. When Spike had Bellator, when Spike had Bellator and they would try to counter program, it was not successful. But when they had a UFC program, that was like the UFC Unleashed. Remember all those shows? That worked. Why? Because Spike had the brand awareness with UFC content. So the casual sporting fan still went to Spike for UFC. That still proves my point. That's okay. It's a 10-8 round. Designated member, Cole, Patrick, everyone in the chat. I want scorecards right now for this round.
Come on.
10-8 for me. Easy. 10-8.
No, bullshit.
Maybe 10-7, guys. I don't know about this.
Bullshit. No, the thing is, you have to be... If you are a true sports fan and you call yourself following the sport, like I'll put it this way: the times I used to, as you know, I bartended at sports bars and stuff that showed fights all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the
Buffalo Wild Wings. What up?
You said what?
I said Buffalo Wild Wings. What up?
Okay. Out here was Boston's in Long Beach. But back home it was Champs in Pentagon City, Virginia. But anyway, now one thing that I wouldn't say outraged me, it just shocked me, is how stupid a lot of people are when it comes to fights.
Yeah.
Now, there's no way you can tell me that the person who's intelligent enough to understand the difference between UFC and Bellator.
Let me rephrase that, because I should rephrase that. The difference between UFC and just MMA. Maybe they don't even know what MMA is, but they're like, that's kind of like UFC. You know what I mean? Like
the people that say you train UFC, like that's
you have UFC and other.
But
Bellator, PFL 1, all that other. It's all other. It's like UFC.
Yeah, but like if you show them on a screen next to each other at the same time, they can tell the difference maybe by the production value.
Yes.
But if you just showed it to them in isolation, they would just see people fighting in a cage.
Well, I mean, if you just take a literal picture of two guys fighting in a cage, then they all look similar.
Exactly, and that's what they see.
But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about if you're watching down a television, dude, if you're flipping the channels and you're watching Bellator or UFC, whatever, you can tell, man. Like I think the casual sporting fan, they can tell premium content versus non-premium content. You can't.
Now, see, the thing is, maybe like in your age group, they probably can, because now your age group has grown up with the UFC.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So the same, like now
you're like 40. I don't know how.
I'm almost 40. So yeah. So if you're pushing, like the same way I grew up with the NFL. So you show me the NFL on any level, any team or any stadium, whatever, and you show me the CFL, I'll know the difference.
Or like arena football league or anything like that. You'd be like, no, this isn't.
I'll instantly know the difference. But people my age who are not fight fans will not know the difference between the UFC and Bellator and one. If you played them in isolation, they would not know the difference because they don't have the point of reference unless they are a fight fan. Unless there's someone who at some point in time was really invested in it. For the people who actually believed that Bethe Correia had a chance to beat Ronda Rousey because she was undefeated. And I had a lot of conversations with people like that. People that really thought that was going to happen. The people who I had those conversations with, they don't get fights or anything enough to know the difference between the UFC and Bellator if you showed them in isolation.
Disagree. I disagree. Obviously, we don't have data to prove that, but I disagree.
Okay. I mean, how are you going to disagree with my life experience and conversations I had with these people?
Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying like you can have some people that are like that, but I'm saying I think the average casual sporting fan, they can tell the difference between a UFC product and non-UFC product. Absolutely.
Honestly, Matt,
the brand awareness and synergy of UFC, it's too much.
The brand awareness to say yes, UFC, yes, maybe you get that, but if you showed something, you showed people cage fighting.
No, I understand your point. I understand.
A fairly decent television camera. They were UFC. That's what they would think until someone told them otherwise. And I've been in those conversations with people who thought that Kimbo versus Dada was a UFC fight. Okay, so when you're talking about casual level intelligence, we're talking about a different scale here. There's certain things
I understand
that to us are totally normal that they don't get.
I understand
that.
I understand, and I just disagree.
Okay, you're just wrong.
I'm not, but it's okay.
And notice no one has scored the round. Period.
To be honest, like no one's commented for a while. I'm like kind of concerned slightly.
Is the stream down? If the stream is down. Is it down?
Nah, it should be good.
Okay,
I would know. I would know if it's down.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see here.
We're fine. Trust me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we're still live. All right. So, let's. I mean, we've been at this for a little while, so let's just kind of speed through. One question here that I think a couple questions actually we should address. This is from David Lemon Party. Lemon Party, is that a thing? All right. It says, "Hey Ant, give us the fucking legit skinny," and he said, "Fucking legit skinny. Is Conor McGregor the Irish sports star being investigated for both those sexual assault cases or not? Not asking for any judgment on guilt or otherwise, just clarity on if it is him or not." I would say yes, it is him. At least for the first one, the New York Times identified him. Due to laws in Ireland, he cannot be publicly identified by Irish media because it's laws to protect victims and people who are wrongfully accused. But judging by the article where it pointed out that this person was under investigation for another sexual assault, I think it also alluded to facing charges for an assault. Also, Connor fits all those check marks. So yeah, I think it's safe to say it's him.
Yeah. And also, by the way, Cole in the chat saying 10-9 me. Just saying.
It wasn't a 10-8 though, huh?
But I won.
I don't know. Not really. Not really.
I mean, there's only one scorecard.
I mean, Cole was always going to score it for you. So like
what are you talking about?
Cole is always going to score it for you.
St. Peter of Sherdog would never do that. Okay, he's an honest, good man.
Except when he's not being honest. He's the Chaudhry of Sherdog.
Oh, come on, man. That's just mean. Wow. That's harsh.
Yeah, Cole was never going to score this for me. Like this. Let's just be honest. You know that. You know that. Like,
yeah, Designated Member. I really need to know your score. I think you'll be the definitive judge here.
It's always ugly when marriages break apart. I don't know. Matt, I don't think this is officially a divorce, but
or a marriage.
That's true. More of a domestic partnership. Or civil union, is that what they call that? It's so all right. We'll end it on this serious question right here before we wrap things, because we do have something else. Now he says, this is also David Lemon Party. He asked about the CSAC announcement that fighters who cut more than 50% between weigh-in and fight time will not be allowed to compete. How will this actually work? Is there clarity on times for weigh-ins, reweights, etc.? How soon before the event could we see fights being suddenly scrapped due to this? Could it be immediately prior to walkout? And has this approach ever been taken before in MMA globally or other combat sports? And any comments about the ABC or other governing bodies on this matter, Matt? No, you're all about the regulation. Yes. What's your take?
I think it's a great step forward. Trent Ryan Smith, I know I mispronounced that last name, good journalist. He doesn't think so, but I tend to disagree with him, actually, quite a lot, actually. But good journalist. But I think people need to slow down and think that this is going to be a massive change because the numbers for the amount of fighters that actually hit this mark is pretty low. I forget the exact number. I think it was like 1%, or even like less than 1% of all fighters hit over this 15% mark. So it's not going to be a drastic change, but we're sort of curve those extreme guys on the fringes cutting weight. And how it will work from what I understand, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, that similar to like next day weigh-ins for, I don't know if MMA fans are familiar with that, but it's a very common thing in boxing. To have weigh in on Friday, but you have a next day weigh-in around 8 a.m. on Saturday, and that'd be your fight day weigh-in or fight night weight, even though you can keep moving up in weight as the day moves on.
And California is the only commission that keeps track of that in MMA now.
And they obviously kept track of it for this because they wanted to implement this policy. And that's how it would be done, is that we would find out probably the morning of. So Saturday morning, we would find out if these guys are cutting too much weight, to be honest. The only other way to do that would be to have like 30-day check-ins, 30-day weigh-in check-ins, 15-day weigh-in check-ins, and to have an algorithm to check what your percentage is that you're cutting off. The WBC for boxing do something similar to that, so that could also be something that they try out. But from what I understand, it's the next day weigh-ins. That's how it's going to be implemented. So if fights get canceled, it's going to be the day of, and fights just get scrapped.
Yeah, and then also too, let's keep in mind that as far as the way other commissions react to this, California started the early weigh-in for MMA. The reason why we have the morning weigh-ins and then the ceremonials, that was California's decision to do that, and everyone else adopted it. California, like Nevada, like New Jersey, and maybe Pennsylvania also, are the commissions that kind of stay a little bit ahead of the curve with everyone else, and the rest of the regulation follows what they do. So I would anticipate because as of right now, this isn't official. This is something that they have proposed. If this becomes official, this is something that they start enforcing.
No, it's official.
It is official.
Yeah.
I thought it was still.
No.
Thought it was,
no, it's official.
Okay.
Yeah, it's official.
No, it's absolutely official now. Okay.
Yeah. They had a vote, and it was a unanimous 5-0 vote.
And when does it take effect?
Ooh, I do not have.
I would assume January because they don't.
I want to say it's next year. I could be wrong about that. I talked about it on my show on Mixed Comment Radio. If you want to go check it out, anyone listening, I went more in detail about it. But I forget the date, but I do know it is official. They voted on it. It's happening. But to your point, Ann, about other states adopting it, obviously some will. A lot of the more innovative states, New Jersey, for example, will obviously, I think, adopt this policy. But a lot of other states won't. And until the ABC enforces it, even then, like we saw, with the unified rules, it's impossible to enforce a rule set across every commission in this country. And I would not be surprised to see commissions like Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, basically the entire South say, no, let's not do that, and start seeing a lot of guys that maybe are cutting a lot of weight start fighting in cards that are in specific locations.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, and we'll conclude it with this last question. This is from dball007. What is the purpose of life, and do you hand out candy on Halloween, and if so, what kind?
Well, let me get the hard question out of the way first. The candy aspect. Any sort of chocolate bar without nuts, guys. Like, I'll be honest, as a kid that had a peanut allergy growing up, that was the hardest thing on Halloween, was the amount of like Reese's, Butterfingers, shit like that I got. I just couldn't eat. So like my sister would get it, and so I always had less candy than other kids. So don't give out candy with peanuts. Be nice. Kit Kats, Three Musketeers, Trix, what else? Crunch, Hershey's. What would be some like good candy bars?
All the ones I was
Milky
about
Way.
to say something.
I love me some Milky Ways. I'll be honest.
Way, a little overrated. All right.
Get the dark chocolate one. Damn, love me some of that. But yeah, that's what I would absolutely recommend. Now, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to make yourself and others happy equally. If you do that, you're good.
Oh, look at you with the wisdom. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've sort of figured out in life. You know, if you do enough acid, you sort of figure that shit out.
Oh, okay.
And that's, if you get that balance of like making yourself happy, making others happy, you've figured out life's meaning, honestly. And you honestly live a happy life.
All right. So I'll start with the candy and Halloween. See, I grew up not celebrating Halloween. So
let me add to that. I was sick every Halloween growing up from the age of 5 to the age of 14. So I'm with you there. I would get the flu or the cold literally the day of Halloween all those years. Me and my sister. It was sad.
See, I used to always get the flu or strep throat right after New Year's because I partied myself like a maniac, and then immune system caught up with me. But I never celebrated Halloween growing up. And I've never been a guy who liked a lot of sweets, so candy was very rarely my thing. I don't know if my wife is probably gonna make me give candy to some little kids. Little bastards come to my door.
Bro,
get some Skittles.
you're getting a kid like around like Christmas time, man. Like, you got to be in the mood, in the festive holiday mood now. You have to.
No, we celebrate National Batman Day in my house. Those would be the holidays we celebrate.
I mean, I don't.
May 4th will be a holiday in my house. May the 4th be with you.
I respect that. I respect all those ideas. I understand.
Although my wife is probably going to force me to put up Christmas lights and all that stuff and hand out candy to little bastard children running up, knocking on my door. Little punks, stay off my damn lawn. Time for this shit.
Yo, no, man. Halloween is so much more fun when you're a parent than when you're like just.
No, it'll be a good time.
Like,
I'll have a little man dressed up like Robin. I'll be Batman. We'll go Green Hornet and Kato or something like that. It'll be fun.
Halloween, and this is some advice for some people out there. Halloween is only fun if you're single in your 20s and 30s. Otherwise, it's only fun if you're a parent in those ages as well. If you're just like with someone and it's Halloween, like what are you gonna do? Like dress up and like have like lame sex like that night? Like, well, I don't know. Like when you're single, like you get some strange out there. It could be a fun night, If you're
you can get some you may not be able to
exactly,
get rid of
And with when you're a parent, dressing up your kid for Halloween and like their excitement is like an entirely different level of fun, honestly, because you get to live vicariously through your kids.
Hey, did you see, speaking of Halloween and living vicariously through your kids, did you see this meme where somebody posted a picture of their kid dressed like Nipsey Hussle and with the quote saying,
I saw that.
Yeah, that like, oh, daddy, I don't want to be Spider-Man. I want to be Nipsey Hussle and celebrate his life instead of mine. You liar. Your child never said that. I detect massive levels of cap on that statement. You are a liar. Knock it off. All respect to Nip the Great right there. All respect to Nipsey Hussle and long live the marathon. I'm for all of that.
I will say this though. I will say this. That costume
you are a
was really
liar.
Nice.
The costume was dope, except for that spare barbershop hair that they glued in that poor child's face. Okay. So don't just massive levels of cap, man. We're not having it. I have about like 40 baseball caps, right?
Yes.
Just a whole bunch of baseball cap stash. I don't have more cap than that statement. I'll just put it that way. That statement is all cap. All right. Just no. Your kid did not want to be Nipsey Hussle for Halloween.
No. Knock
it off. Victory Lap is an amazing album. All right. Anyway, now the question is, what is the purpose of life?
Yes.
I ain't figured it out yet. So with that being said, that will do it for this episode of The Trenches. Definitely want to thank everyone who jumped up in the chat, kept the conversation moving forward. Thank you to everyone who dropped questions in the forum. I will be doing, of course, the Ask Ant mailbag column as well. So I'm going to scroll back through the chat, scroll back through the forum, see what questions were missed, and pick a few of them to answer for your reading pleasure. So the good, bad, and the ugly will be coming to you to wrap up UFC Boston. That event takes place on Friday. Therefore, the article should be out on Saturday. There will be Mixed Combat Radio product as well, I'm sure. There will be a Walk of Shame as well, I'm sure. So Matt, let the good folks know where they can find you.
Well, quickly, just want to say rest in peace to Patrick Day, a boxer that tragically passed away today. He went to a coma on Saturday night on the Usyk undercard, and he never recovered, unfortunately. So condolences to him, his family, his friends, his team, everyone like in that community that's obviously devastated right now. Rest in peace to Patrick Day. You can find me, Hunter MCR, all platform. Mixed Combat Radio is my personal channel, YouTube channel, outlet, podcast, all that fun stuff. You can find me, obviously, Sherdog.com, taking video and photos at events. And have a great day. Peace.
All right, so you know what you got to do, everybody. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Follow me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA, and stay beautiful, stay positive, and you got to stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
Peace.
I'm supposed to say peace last.
That's fucking illegal.